is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Podcast, the top podcast in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines. But most importantly, you guys provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And I say that before every single show. And what I mean by that is I only speak with transportation professionals, because at the end of the day, I want to talk to the right individuals who have done what you're looking to do, or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve. So you can take that information, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. Happy Wednesday, everybody. I have a special solo show for you guys here today. And what we're going to be doing, we're going to be doing a little bit of a freight market report. I'm going to be giving you guys a heads up on what I'm seeing out there in the market. And again, this is just coming from somebody who actually moves freight. And we're also going to be breaking down some headlines today. But before we get into any of that, you guys, it's Wednesday today. And what does that mean? It means it's Freight Coach Newsletter Day. So if you want to get in on that, though, again, it drops once a week, you guys. I'm not bombarding you with stuff. I'm not peppering your inbox, trying to sell you guys a bunch of stuff at all. I'm just trying to give you guys another resource if you don't want to listen to me speak, which would be ironic if you're listening to the show. But anyways, I need you to go to thefreightcoach.com, though, to register for it. It'll auto prompt you to do it. And it just comes in once a week, and that's it. And it's all freight related, you guys. I'm doing a little bit of market, fuel prices, everything. And that's all we do. Corey Buchan, happy hump day to you, my man. But let's dive right in today, you guys. Again, like I had mentioned, when I do these solo shows, I'm going to be giving you guys some market data on what I'm seeing out there. Obviously I have a bunch of different data internally from the freight we're actually moving, and then some of the public data that's out there. And this is the stuff that I study a lot on, kind of trying to see where are the trends, what to look out for. Is there any sign of anything that we can start kind of planning on a meaningful change, not just a blip of it was a holiday. But out there right now, you guys, obviously Thanksgiving week was last week, and that's going to impact, and that impacted some of the pricing that was out there. Load posts did fall over there. Equipment was down. Posted equipment was down, as you would expect. Less trucks on the road. And then also, and that was just in the dry van side of things, and it was down in reefer, it was down in flatbed, it was down in loads across all three major modes as well. And again, that's a direct attribution. I don't even know how to say that word, but it's attributed, to the Thanksgiving holiday that was out there. Diesel prices were at $3.85 a gallon, 6-cent drop week over week, but it's a 32% or 32-cent increase year over year. Reefer demand surges were shown in the Philadelphia market, and outbound reefer volumes are up 16%, and then flatbed rates remain steady out there. So again, those are some things that I'm looking at. And again, it was a holiday week, so I take a lot of what you see out there between last week and this week with a grain of salt. There is that holiday effect out there. I know some of my carriers that we work with, they weren't working even on Monday. They gave their drivers the time off. So again, that is going to skew the market in some of the data that you see out there. But that's a short-term blip, right? Like, it's not going to continue. It could, based on some of the articles we're going to be breaking down, but like in today's present tense, I don't see any meaningful long-term changes that have happened for it. National spot rates across the board. So it's entering December on a mixed note. Again, last month of the year here, you guys, there was suppressed activity last week due to the holiday. But broader activity shows, some little glimmers of hope out there. But again, national rate, spot rates out there. Again, these are national averages, you guys. This isn't what it is out there on every lane. $2.09 for dry vans. Flatbeds were at $2.48 a mile. And then refrigerated, $2.54 a mile out there, national average. But contract, and let me see here, guys. Oh, sorry, I lost my spot. Spot rates have mostly leveled off, but it looks like there could continue to be some upward pressure, again, depending on what, again, some of these articles we're going to be breaking down. There could be some capacity crunch that could come off of what we're seeing out there. But outbound tender rejections, van is at 6.63%. Flatbed was at 12.39%. Reefer was at 13.42%. Rising tender rejections obviously indicate one thing. Carriers are regaining pricing power out there, signaling potential rate increases in the near term. But again, you guys, if you're looking out over that, I look at a couple of weeks, when there's a holiday like last week, and it's even going to hang over into this week. I think that has a lot to do with it. I use that as a reference point, and I pay attention to that over the next couple of weeks. So those are one of those things I think everybody should pay attention to out there. Obviously, there was just a major holiday effect on a lot of the pricing that comes, but it could help spot rates rise. All right. If this continues, it could. Capacity constraints are starting to emerge. All right. A lot of it has to do with a lot of the regulatory pressure that is being put on there right now. But I look at it overall. If we're looking at the macro, consumer confidence is still low. Freight tonnage indexes are down, signaling a softer demand overall. Capacity constraints, again, pay attention to that. Could be a thing. I look at it that there could be weather-related things. So if we're looking at how do we plan out for the month of December here, okay? Weather, obviously, is going to be a big thing. The Midwest got pummeled with snow in certain areas out there. That is going to be a potential factor here now that it's December. December, January, February, snowstorms, everything else. Like, again, those are those things that I like to pay attention to. Those are some pricing factors that I would take into consideration as things come up, right? Because if you're picking up a load, for example, I live in Arizona, it doesn't necessarily snow in Phoenix. And if you're sending a load up into like Wyoming and stuff like that, you guys, you got to take that into consideration. Like, we're picking up a load here today, going up into Colorado, talk to the receiver out there, and they're talking about snow and everything. So we're going to add transit time in there. And again, some of those things could be a limiter of capacity as well as you're going into those winter months. And again, if that happens, limited capacity, if you're in the spot market only, you could see a price increase from that as well, you guys. So those are just some of those key things that I think you should be paying attention to as we start going into late December, early 2026. But again, I look at it is there's a lot hinging on what some of these articles are we're going to be breaking down here. Josh over on X said he sees the spot market already upside down. And yeah, Josh, and he said outside of retail peak too out there. And Josh, I've seen some early indications on that. I see a lot of just with the holiday being last week, and anytime that it's like Thanksgiving, I consider last week and this week like a holiday weeks. So, again, I know that that's kind of thrown some different lanes out there, but again, it's a good thing. It's a good point of emphasis to start tracking. But I think that there's a lot to be seen here as we're coming up, you guys. But again, that's just my little freight market report, what I'm seeing inside of my personal operation out there, a lot of the data points that I pay attention to in the market. And again, I think we're going to get into a lot of these articles here that I think could potentially be a big factor in what needs to happen. Because again, in its simplest form, it's supply and demand, you guys. There's a lot of trucks out there. There's not a lot of freight for it. So with these articles that we're going to be breaking down could level off a lot of that. But as always, you guys, with any of these articles that I do break down, the links will be in the show notes for you guys all, because again, I went to public school. All right. This is just my opinion. I went to public school. I've been in trucking for about 20 years. So take that for what it's worth. I always want you guys to do your own research though. So first article, what we are going to be breaking down today, ttnews.com. What to know about DOT's crackdown on CDL mills. This is gaining some mainstream media out there. And I do want to bring up that I kind of feel like the DOT and Secretary Duffy's team watches this show, because I said this 4 months ago on the show when that tragic accident happened out in Florida that started getting everybody's attention about this. These CDL schools that are out there should have been shut down a long time ago. And I think that was the root cause of it. Again, I'm not trying to take credit for it, but I am saying I did talk about this back in August, but it's good to see that this is gaining some attention out there. But with this article, you guys, ttnews.com, the DOT under Secretary Duffy recently announced aggressive enforcement actions against fraudulent or low quality CDL training operations, commonly dubbed as CDL mills. These mills have been exploiting loopholes in the certification process. Many self-certified as compliant with the required training standards without delivering meaningful hands-on behind-the-wheel instruction. As a result of federal reviews and audits, nearly 3,000 training providers have been removed from the official registry that qualifies students to sit for CDLs, and thousands more have been receiving warnings. Industry associations representing carriers, owner-ops, and training bodies broadly welcomed the crackdown, arguing it restores professionalism and safety to the industry. The move aims to ensure new drivers meet consistent quality standards, reducing risks on the road, and leveling the playing field for carriers that hire properly trained drivers. I'm a massive fan of this. Like I said 4 months ago, they should shut all this shit down. And it's good that Secretary Duffy is taking a hard stance on this, all right? Because again, we want any and all fraudulent operations removed from the freeways. And that starts at the CDL schools. They got to crack down at the people who are at the DMV who are actually signing off on this stuff. Like they should be going like just literally ripping everything apart to its fibers to stop this stuff, right? And then again, like I always talk about, when you're tough on this stuff, it in theory should deter any of the bad actors from wanting to try and use any of these loopholes that are out there. But again, it starts and stops with the DOT. And like I've always said, Duffy didn't create the problem, but it's good to see he's at least taking the necessary steps towards removing it and taking care of it out there. But, you know, like with these, it's like, you got to look at it like this. And my dad talked about this back in the 90s. I remember this as a little kid, talking about these CDL schools back then. And he always joked around. It's like, oh, 8 weeks, you're a truck driver. And it seemingly has been slowly getting shorter and shorter out there. Because again, like when you're operating this equipment, this is a skilled labor job. I don't care what anybody says. I mean, go, if you think it's unskilled labor that it takes to drive a truck, go do it yourself. But you know, a lot of these is they take cash payments and then they push them out, right? Like they're incentivized by volume. And I think like the more people they push through, the more money they make. But you know, I think 3,000 training providers were removed out there. And I think that it's a good step in purging out a lot of these. I look, you know, because again, if safety is the big thing, and that's what I think a lot of the rallying cry is the motoring public. We want the safest people behind the wheels of well, any vehicle, let alone semis and everything else. And I look at it that it's good that they are out there, and we're raising those standards that are out there, because you shouldn't be able. I just want to see any and all loopholes closed to where it avoids any of these people from ever being able to be behind the wheel without going through specific training. Like I had talked about a couple weeks ago, we need a set federal standard. All right. And again, I'm not a fan of government overreach or anything like that, but I think like when it comes down to something like this, they need that set standards. And if there's going to be any CDL schools that are out there moving forward, again, this should be a point of emphasis for Secretary Duffy, have the set federal standards on what they have to actually pass. It's just like with going to get a degree, right? Like you go to the now defunct Department of Education. But I look at it like this: if you're going to go out there and get a bachelor's or an associate's degree, you know, like I know a lot of guys that are diesel mechanics. They all receive the exact same training in school and everything, right? So again, there's standards that are put out there. There should be no give or take on any of it. It's got to be either there's no gray area. It's either pass or fail. It's very black and white to me out there. But again, I don't see that this is going to affect capacity or like the next generation of drivers. I think that this is going to elevate that, and there's going to be higher quality drivers that are going to be out on the road out there. I think that, you know, there's always a potential implication of short-term disruptions that could come along with this, right? And again, depending on how deep this stuff goes, I look at it as this is one of those situations that could be one of those things that actually affects capacity in the short term and actually could trigger a market rebalance out there. I would love to see them go a step further and start going. And again, I don't have access to every single article that's been written about this in front of me right now. I hope Duffy takes this and goes after all the drivers who were issued CDLs from these schools, right? Because if the schools are being shut down, I hope that they're going to go out there and look at all the CDLs that have been issued through these schools to ensure that these drivers are actually able to operate a semi truck out there. But that article, you guys, again, this is another one of those things that could tip the needle. That article is from ttnews.com. What to know about the DOT's crackdown on CDL mills. And again, the link will be in the show notes for you guys all to click on and check out yourself. Next article we're going to be breaking down, it's a combo article. It's going to be from joc.com. Is this one, you guys? It's tariff costs, data center deemed to create a mixed outlook for roll-on, roll-off shippers in 2026. And I also had plugged in the fact, I just saw this the other day, that Costco, the retailer, is suing the Trump administration about tariffs as well. So this article, it's just kind of got a mixed near-term outlook on roll-on, like break bulk shippers, roll-on, roll-off, stuff like that. And I brought this up because of the companies that are associated with this, John Deere and Caterpillar, right? So, two just small startup companies. I'm being facetious, but, these are very large manufacturers who have a very wide footprint out there. And I look at it when they're looking at this, so, the article, it talks about, on one hand, rising tariffs and new U.S. port and vessel related fees are increasing costs and creating uncertainty. On the other hand, growing demand from data center construction and expansion, likely from heavy equipment and so on, is expected to support certain trades, offering a modest silver lining for some operators. Carriers and shippers in this space may see uneven demand, a mixed bag, if you will, depending on the route and cargo type that is going on out there. Because they're reshaping a lot of this stuff. And again, like I've always mentioned, I'm 100% always America first. And I think a lot of what we're seeing, it's going to cause some short-term pain. I have faith that reindustrializing the United States of America will pay off in the long term. Short term, not going to be that great, probably for a lot of people. And when I say that, you guys, like I'm including myself in that one, right? Because I buy groceries and everything. I see a lot of this stuff, but I have faith that in the long term, it's going to pay off and it's going to become a more beneficial look for us all out there. I just look at it as, when we're looking at, is this going to affect building in 2026, and is this going to have that downstream effect that comes along with it, with rising construction costs? Because again, companies have to go out there. They got to buy the equipment to operate it. They're going to factor in all of those costs as they're going out there and bidding on jobs in 2026. And when you're having to pay more to get your equipment, you're paying more to operate it in most instances as well. Diesel prices are up across the board. So I think that could lead to elevated construction costs. So I think that it's, for me, it could, I think that there's going to be some short-term adaptation that needs to happen here from us. And you never know, because, the other article here talking about why Costco filed a lawsuit for a refund on import tariffs. Courts have previously ruled that it was unlawful. And then the case is now before the Supreme Court. And then if the Supreme Court strikes down the tariffs, many companies could be entitled to substantial refunds out there. And then, because this article was from AP, you guys, AP News, and it was Costco becomes the biggest company yet to demand a refund from the tariffs out there. And then it's, let me see here, inject volatility in a global trade. And then pressure on freight volumes and shift trade. Sorry, my computer. All right. So it looks like they're trying to recoup a lot of what they've paid in tariffs from there. They're suing the Trump administration about this. But, even if it is declared illegal, that there is no guarantee every importer will recover the duties they already paid, depending on how liquidation and refund procedures are handled. And again, like there's a lot to be seen here about this. There's a significant legal and regulatory uncertainty around these, which could lead to a major reversal. It'll be yet to be seen, though, right? But I think that it's Costco is the biggest company that's openly suing the Trump administration about it. I just thought that with that, and then all of the increased cost that comes along with it, we're the ones who are going to be paying for that in the short term. And yeah, it's again, I'm just trying to hold out hope. I'm trying to be as optimistic as I possibly can about this stuff. I'm not saying tariffs are a bad idea. I think reindustrialization of the United States is a very great idea. It just takes a very long time to get to that point. And again, there's just going to be those short-term pains. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Costco on what's going to, if they're going to be able to win this lawsuit and what could potentially happen on that one, you guys. So JOC.com was, again, talking about the roll-on, roll-off freight out there, Caterpillar, John Deere, and Costco, all three very large companies who are speaking about the potential implications of this. So again, those are those points of emphasis that I think are very much in need for people to pay attention to. Now, this is, I think, the most critical thing that comes along with it here. This article was from freightwaves.com, and this is inside the DOT's new ELD approval overhaul. What changed and why it matters. So the FMCSA recently announced a major overhaul for its approval process for ELDs, shifting away from prior self-certification towards a more rigorous multi-step vetting system. Under the old system in place since 2017, manufacturers self-certified compliance with technical rules, which opened the door to non-compliant or fraudulent devices. This overhaul comes after a tragic high-profile crash involving a fleet using fraudulent ELD data, a case that exposed deep vulnerabilities in how ELDs compliance was verified. The new vetting will include pre-publication checks, verifying contact info, technical specs, device imagery, and cross-checking applicants against active, inactive, revoked, and pending lists. While the new process is a step up, it does not yet introduce independent device testing or mandatory audit trail logging, elements previously recommended by investigators to prevent ghost driver fraud for carriers and drivers. So this to me, like, I'm surprised that this was even a thing, right? Like I honestly am, especially when it comes down to the ELDs, that there was that, because like and I think like what is really going on for some of these, and I think that this could potentially create a monopoly in the market for the largest providers that are out there, because this is just the first wave. I think that it's going to definitely force a lot of people to change their providers, because like you're already seeing it. There are certain companies right now that do onboarding that have denied some ELD providers that are out there, right? And again, I don't have all the data and the company names to say that it was all the ones that were already removed, but I think that this is going to be a very big deal moving forward. I think that, again, we don't want anybody to be able to manipulate their data, their hours of service, all of that stuff. We want safe operations that are going on. And again, when that comes with it, though, you guys, as you see, that could, again, raise rates at the end of the day, because there might be more fraudulent carriers rolling down the road than people think. But I look at it as, the crash that happened that triggered this, right? I think that this is another avenue where, again, people are out there. I mean, I've seen these posts on Facebook and other social media sites where they're offering to reset their logbooks and stuff like that. I think overall, it should reduce the ability of some of these fraudulent ELD providers to even operate or even create that company now. Cause it's like, but again, I think like if there's a will, there's a way, unfortunately. I think that there's going to have to be some form of, and I hate even saying this, but I look at it where, again, we're going to need more we're going to need more oversight with this. Unfortunately, if there's going to be more of a digital push, but again, the good thing is it shouldn't be that much of a big deal if you're doing things the right way, right? Like, and I think like unfortunately, when we are at this point, right? Because it's a good thing that these guys have recognized the past failures and where we're at as an industry. But again, I look at it as an entrepreneur, this could be a very good business idea for somebody who could go in there and be a non-biased third-party auditor of ELDs and stuff to make sure that everybody's compliant. I think that's stuff that we want out there, but there should be no way to manipulate your data inside of your ELDs. And again, this just shows how incompetent some of these governing bodies have been over these last couple of 10 years, 15 years. Well, we'll go 8 years because this became a thing in 2017. And again, there's that evolution, you guys, where criminals are always going to find a way. People are always going to find a way to break the law. But again, this is why we need to make it. There needs to be an increase in standards out there. There has to be a inability for people to manipulate this data that goes on, especially inside of the ELDs, because again, there's been enough high profile crashes out there. I just want safer roads for everybody. And I know the implications that could come from this, right? But again, the companies that are doing it right, they're the ones who are going to be the biggest advocates of all of this stuff, because this is going to keep them in business. This is going to help them make more money. And that's the positive that I see from a lot of this, right? Like I look at it as the companies that are out there operating legally, ethically, and everything else, all of this stuff, the removal of the CDL mills, the ELD, overhaul that's going on here, this is only going to benefit you, right? This is going to help you stand out. And I look at it as the more digital we become, the more vetting softwares that are going to become a thing, that are going to have that pass fail of if you're going to be able to even operate as a service provider, right? So I look at this as it's a very good step in the right direction, and I hope it continues. I hope Secretary Duffy continues to put his foot on people's throats when it comes to safety and the ability to manipulate it and close any and all of these loopholes that are making our roads unsafe. And again, there's going to be some short-term turbulence that comes along with this. There's no doubt in that. But again, long-term, if you're a trucking company and you're operating legally, ethically, you're hiring your drivers the right way, they're skilled drivers, you guys are going to be making a killing here over the next 5 years, I bet. I think this next market swing that's about to happen, because it's going to become a carrier's market. That is the next iteration of this market swing. For those ones that are doing it right, I don't want to say it's going to be name your price or anything like that. I just think it's going to be very financially beneficial for you moving forward, because I see a lot of the onboarding companies that are out there from a broker's perspective. There's going to be more and more rules to be able to work with them, right? Like in the sense of, if you're using one of these ELD providers that is not shown to be like the self-certificate, all of that stuff, and you're not using them, you're using the Samsaras of the world. I'm not associated with them, but that's just the first one that comes to mind here. If you're out there and you're doing all of that, I think you're going to be in for a very good payday here over the next 5 years, because you have a clean operation, a legal operation. And I truly think, again, I'm not a driver. I'm not speaking for drivers, but I feel like that's what a lot of drivers are saying. The ones who are out there doing it right, the ones who are operating legally and ethically, they just want to be compensated fairly for it, right? They want all of these criminals and bad actors removed from the market that are causing rates to plummet. So I think this is a good sign for the trucking industry as a whole. Again, it could cause some short-term turbulence out there. I think it's early to tell, but I look at it as the higher the standard, the better the pay for the driver. That's what I look at it, right? The higher the standard, the better the pay for the driver. But that article, you guys, was from FreightWaves, and it is, inside of DOT's new ELD approval overhaul, which again, I think is only going to benefit the right providers out there. But that will be it for today, ladies and gentlemen. As always, if you got value in what you heard today and you're not subscribed to the show, do your boy a solid. Subscribe, share it out there, rank it on iTunes and Spotify, you guys, because if you see value, your network's going to see it as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys, and we'll be talking to you soon.
I'm getting to the bag, ayy.